Good morning. It is filled to the brim, and it is Wednesday, May 8th, and we're talking about godly conflict. This is our second week, but this week we're talking about how godly conflict, in the midst of our conflict as a believer, it can get personal. And when conflict gets personal, that's when it can be more challenging than when it's maybe about a concept, something that doesn't hit or strike so personally. And we focused on Acts chapter 15. Last week, the beginning of the passage of Acts chapter 15 talked about the Jerusalem Council and how there was sharp disagreement about the Gentiles and whether they should be circumcised. But then as we go through the chapter, we find that there also is another conflict in that same chapter. And it has to do with Paul and Barnabas and their difference of opinion about John Mark. And this conflict between these long-standing friends, these long-standing ministry partners who have gone through all kinds of pain and struggle on behalf of the gospel of Jesus Christ, how it gets very complex, how it gets very personal and painful. Let's read Acts 15:36 through 41. Sometime later, Paul said to Barnabas, "Let us go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we preach the word of the Lord and see how they are doing." Barnabas wanted to take John, also called Mark, with them. But Paul did not think it was wise to take him because he had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not continued with them in the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. Barnabas took Mark and sailed for Cyprus. But Paul chose Silas and left, commended by the believers to the grace of the Lord. He went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. Now, what you don't see in this text, this portion of Acts chapter 15, like we saw at the beginning or the resolution at the Jerusalem Council, was the phrase Acts 15:28. It was good to the Holy Spirit and to us. That phrase is missing in this conflict. In other words, there doesn't appear to be a resolution, a shalom, a peaceful way by which they parted. It seemed to be sustained here, a sharp disagreement. Things got personal, and all of a sudden, when things get personal, it's no longer about John Mark. It became between Barnabas and Paul. You know, isn't it interesting how when we can have disagreements, it moves from the actual talking about what the disagreement started with, what that issue was, and then it gets personal. It becomes something that is driven by our pain. You know, we find later in Paul's writings that he probably would have dealt with it differently, if not for sure, by what he says. Because in Romans 12:18, he says this, "If possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." As far as it depends upon you, have shalom with everyone. So later in his writings to Rome and to the Roman church, and actually it was his basically theological dissertation on who Christ is and living in the Spirit and all of those things, the book of Romans, such a beautiful book. He says that, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. We find in Acts chapter 15 with his good friend, the one that defended him before all the apostles embraced him, who helped launch his ministry. This is the one that he has this huge conflict with. And as a result, this conflict, this sharp disagreement, causes them to split up. And we find that in this disagreement, things got personal. And when things get personal, we feel pain. We feel relationship pain. We feel emotional pain. We feel mental pain. And in this, we don't see a resolution. There is no, it's good to the Holy Spirit and to us. But rather we see a split ministry team, different partners going to different places. And we do not hear about Barnabas and John Mark's exploits, but we do follow Paul and Silas and what they do in the book of Acts. However, we need to really land on this sharp disagreement because it cannot be denied in the text. It is there for a reason. And it's important for us when we do have disagreements, particularly with those who are close to us, which can be way more painful than when we have disagreements with people who aren't close with us, that we need to step away and not take things so personally, not listen to our pain, but listen to the Holy Spirit. Let me say that again, because we all fall into this, we tumble into this, whether it be with our spouse, whether it be with maybe a ministry partner, a pastor, a child, one of our children, a good friend, that we should not cultivate the pain of it being personal, but rather say, Lord, I'm not going to let my pain dictate to me, but I'm going to listen to the Holy Spirit. You know, you can ask the question, what was right to do here? Should John Mark have joined them? Should he have been left behind because of his immaturity? But that's not what this is all about, really. It's more about the sharp disagreement and how it wasn't dealt with. Because the issue became about Paul and Barnabas and about their disagreement about John Mark. And that's what controlled the situation rather than the voice of God. And I think there's something that we can learn here. Let's not listen to our pain. See, Paul was still in the maturing process, and as was Barnabas. And there are examples of mistakes or problems or the need to mature in the life of Paul, just like we see it in the life of Peter and all the other disciples, John and James, sons of thunder, that there is a trajectory of growth here, and we can land on this and say, what can we learn when we have conflict with somebody that we're close to? Do not listen to your pain. Bring it to the Holy Spirit. Allow the Holy Spirit to calm your heart. Don't let the pain speak to you and cause you to react in the flesh. Rather, let the Holy Spirit speak to you and guide you and bring peace to the situation. Jesus is our example. Jesus did not react or take things personally because he could have called 10,000 angels to rescue him, but he did not do that. Even with his own disciples, as we see in his life, who betrayed him, who failed him, that he did not split off from them, but rather continue to nurture his relationship with them. You know, when our disagreements get personal, it can be extremely challenging to us because the pain of it getting personal can motivate us, can be what we dwell on. But let me challenge you, because in this very same chapter before this situation, they came to the resolution and they described in the Jerusalem Council when they had the sharp disagreement and they came to a resolution, they said it was good to the Holy Spirit and to us. That same phrase needs to be in our personal lives. It's not just for, churches. It's not just for things that are external, theological, or whatever, making decisions for groups of people, but rather when it gets personal, and it feels very painful because it's personal. We need to take that pain to the Lord and say, Holy Spirit, we welcome you to calm me, to give me your mind, the mind of Christ regarding this, so that in this personal, sharp disagreement, we can say in the decision that we make, it was good to the Holy Spirit and to us. This is a challenge when it gets personal. It's very challenging, but it's possible. As Paul writes later, if possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. God bless you. Pray about this word, more about godly conflict and how it gets personal tomorrow. God bless you.